Let's drop the green flag on this episode of the Talent Tank Podcast with your host, Wyatt Pemberton, bringing you the best, fastest, most knowledgeable personalities in ULTRA4 and off-road racing.
Here we go. All right. Welcome back to the Talent Tank. As you guys clicked on today's episode, wow, yes. ULTRA4 represented here. This guy, I've been on him for a long time to come on the show, and he kept saying, no, I'm not the guy. Keep focusing on the racers. Keep focusing on the fab guys. But then finally, he gave in. I'm so glad he's on. Alan Johnson. Alan, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Oh, man. Well, ecstatic to sit down here with you. You know, you had a long day of work and then I had a long day of work, rush home to get in to sit down and enjoy the next couple hours with you. So I'm pretty pumped.
Well, me too. I appreciate you having me on, bud.
So Alan, if people aren't familiar with Alan or the name, and he's not a racer today, he was a racer in the past. He's got a couple national championship titles to his name in 4,500. But he is the current marketing and communications vice president of ULTRA4 Racing. It's a big title.
I was going to say, sounds like that way. I don't want that guy's job.
Well, I don't know of anyone that wants your job. You do kind of everything. That's your title, but you're kind of the current do-all for ULTRA4, right? It seems like everything kind of falls towards you.
I'm the do-all that you see because I get to interact with people online or, racers and scheduling. But if you want to find a real do-all, go find Abe or go find, Scott Hartman. And ULTRA4 in general is everyone may have a defined role, but we're all do-alls to a certain extent. I just get to do it with social media and communication. So he chose the ugliest mug they could find and said, you go be social media. So, okay.
Fair assessment of yourself. Yeah, that's how I put it. I will say that I was really shocked. At one point, the ULTRA4 social media presence, it felt like it was a team effort. And then talking to you recently, that might have been the case in the past, but today, almost all social media we see kind of ends up originating in your head. To
a certain extent. Again, you're never going to get me to say something's not a team effort because everything is to a certain respect. We've got fantastic photographers that provide content, and putting words to epic photos is a lot easier than you would think. Sales team's done a great job working and building communication with our partners. So we plan ahead. We planned ahead for the Bronco launch. We planned ahead for, on-site events. So I coordinate it and probably touch the buttons quite a bit, but it is still a team effort when it comes to the messaging and gathering all the content.
Oh no, you guys have been killing it. There's no way it all can originate at one point of a failure, so to speak, or there's no short circuiting of that. It is the cool stuff, the top 10 drivers, the top 10 vehicles, the top 10 races. You guys are constantly finding new and interesting ways to engage the audience.
Well, it's fun when it's something you love, and we love the sport and we love the drivers. And man, there are some amazing content creators in this space. So it's actually really neat just to provide a platform for all the creatives that tell the story, because all of us have been involved in racing for so long. That's part of what draws us to it, is the stories and the personal aspect and the pit and the challenges. No, I love it.
I utilize a lot of your headshots. A lot of guys and ladies that have graced this show with their time, presence, and beauty, glory, got, your picture, something that you snapped of their head, end up being what their cover art is. And I appreciate that.
It's real. I've got to give that credit to my wife. She, and I know we'll talk about her in a little bit, but she's very supportive. And even when she's criticizing, she criticizes supportively. So she's, like any husband, look, honey, what I made. She was real honest with me. After about the fourth picture, all the race cars start to look the same to her. That's kind of not her gig. I mean, I can tell you exactly who they are by their silhouette coming through dust with no numbers showing, but they look the same to her. So I happened to snap some pictures of, Dave and JT and Andrew and a couple others. Oh, that's who that is. And so I started going to events and tried to make sure I took people pics. They always tease me that I was the mom of the group anyway. I always want to make sure I get school pics and people pics and line up so we can get the family. But it is. And that became one of the most popular parts of what we did. that now an event is a failure if at least 8 people don't use my photos as their profile shot on Facebook. So it's kind of turned into a thing, but I absolutely love it because I try to get candid shots. I try to get people do what love. And it, again, just tells a different story of Ultra 4 that I think people can relate to, even if they can't build cars. They can understand smiling and family and having a good time.
Which is what it's all about to begin with, right?
You bet.
We'd hang out with, our best friends if we were ditch diggers, just to be around our best friends, and the people that we call basically our family, our race family. So,
oh, exactly.
Yeah, y'all are killing it. Yeah, I had a conversation with Lana over at Scott's Designs, and because I actually used a picture of hers here in the past couple of weeks, and as I reached out to her, I'd realized that she had taken a picture of you, and I'd asked her about it months ago, and she said yes, I use it, which was a reminder for me to hit you back up and say, hey, when are you going to come on? You finally said, yeah, I'll do it. What was the apprehension?
Yeah, honestly, this is so funny. If you know me, I won't shut up. I like to be the center of attention unless I'm the center of attention. And I'm so interested in helping Ultra 4 grow and really putting the spotlight on a sport that I love and the people I love that I honestly didn't want it to be, about me. And now you've done enough shows and you've established yourself and you've had some amazing guests. And I'm like, okay, now I can slip in here and talk a little bit about Alan and it not detract from Ultra 4 or things along those lines. So for me, it's just a matter of timing. I like to tell the story. I don't like to be the story, if that makes sense.
The guy behind the camera at all times. The other person that I recall that had this same kind of apprehension was Will Gentile, another guy who's behind the camera.
Oh, goodness sakes, that guy's a genius. Definitely one of my mentors and heroes when it comes to telling stories and media and content creation. And again, another one of those examples of someone who early in my career would spend time to just share and coach and befriend someone. And you just don't see that in other sports. But that vibe even permeates to the media family, not just the race family.
Oh, for sure. You get it out there because I kind of skipped it. You're on Instagram as the Dusty Gnome. You're kind of on I have questions about that. And then you're on Facebook, with, white collar publishing is kind of what your photography business is on the side. And like I said, I'm definitely going to go into all that. But as people have seen the Dusty Gnome, you're there, that's your presence, but you're also, kind of one of the guys behind the scenes on the Ultra 4 posts. So you can kind of see that oozing through. And certainly we want to talk about how you got into photography and kind of how that has taken off in the off-road world and kind of even how that ended up with your role, at Ultra 4. We'll get in there here in a little bit, but man, I want to talk about just current issues kind of real quick, because I'm going to say this weekend we've got nationals in Oklahoma. What's going on there, man? Is everything on track? What are the things that we need to know that Ultra 4 wants us to know as we approach, the next 4 or 5 days?
Man, I am so friggin' excited. I mean, it's cliche at this point to say 2020 has been a strange year. But I mean, that's actually one of the hallmarks of Ultra 4, right? It's our ability to adapt and overcome, whether it's on the race course or, what states open, what states closed. So I'm thrilled we're going to be at Davis, Oklahoma. I really enjoy when we go to Reno, and we'll be back in Reno for 2021. But Brian Trotter and the whole crew out at the Crossbar Ranch really made it easy for us to put on a top-notch race at a fantastic facility that, frankly, is more centrally located for more people. Trotter and the crew opened up more course. So JT went out and just had a blast. It's about a 30-mile race course. Still an A lap or an A loop, which is more speed related, and then a very technical rocky B loop through the creeks and the climbs. 2 laps for stock. So stock's doing 60 miles.
Oh, nice.
Yep. 90 miles, 3 laps for Legends modified. And quite frankly, I love being on the conversation where JT's like, hey, we told UTVs to prove themselves. They proved themselves. Let's give them something hard too. So UTVs are running 3 laps as well. And then the big boys are doing 4. So it's a 120-mile final to cap out the year. So since we couldn't race as many races as we wanted to, we'll just race longer in each race and try to make up for it.
I like that. I think the racers will like that too, but that's really going to change strategy for Davis when you start looking at that many miles.
Oh man. And do you pit at the end of the A or at the end of the B? I mean, that's really one of the nice aspects of Crossbar Ranch is the course is almost like a bow tie or a figure 8. So you can do, a loop and a half. So yeah, strategy is certainly part of it. And it truly makes it an endurance race again. There's a short course component. There's a tight wooded component. Love the drag race by the windmills and stuff. I mean, it's absolutely a beautiful course. But yeah, it's a long day, and we think it'll be super competitive. And with the points being so jacked up this year as well, I mean, let's again just be frank. We went from King of the Hammers, Nationals, and 6 regional races to we've had 4 races this year, and then a bonus race at Crandon. So Nationals count, and whether you finish, 2 laps or 4 laps is going to make a dramatic difference in what the season-ending point totals are. So we've got great cars, great drivers, great course. But frankly, enough drama that you're not going to know what's going on until it's over. It's not an in the bag or one person's race to lose at this point. And that's cool. Who doesn't like a good, competitive, hard-fought race?
Yeah, and that's going to be strategy as well, not just on the pitting strategy, but literally, how hard do you push and when do you push and where do you push, just to ensure you can get the finish. I mean, 120 miles at Davis is not going to be a walk in the park. I
have on good authority that Chip is going checkers or records to land on the box. So at the very least, you got to watch Chip to see what he does, because he is going all out for all 120 miles from what I understand.
How is that different than any other race for him?
Chip happens, man. I'm just saying. He's putting it out there ahead of time.
Oh, Lord. I love that guy. He's good. In Texas.
Yep. Just a couple other things that are important to note, not to get too much into the business side of things, but there are a few differences this year. And again, it just has to do with this being such an unusual year. Typically, you had to race hammers and a regional race to be able to come to nationals. It was kind of earn your way into it. Obviously, we didn't have as many chances to race this year. So nationals are open to anyone, even if it's their first race of the year. However, it's not a gimme KOH qualifier. So this is not a way to short circuit LCQ and show up and go, I'm in King of the Hammers. Nope, you could have done that in Tennessee. You could have done that in Moab. People who want to just experience ULTRA4, people who want to shake down before hammers. This is a great opportunity to come out and race and really enjoy it. Also, like it or not, the digital reduced contact experience is where we live these days. And so we're utilizing some of those elements at nationals. You may have already noticed, you can pre-register online. You can buy tickets online. There's a lot more you can do. And we want to incorporate these at nationals so we can refine it for King of the Hammers this year. So it's going to be the same great stuff we love doing, just a couple little nuances due to the year. But yeah, nationals are just going to rock.
Digital transformation. I mean, that's a cool beta test. You will get grace on rolling anything new out, but to roll it out at KOH would be almost reckless. So it's very cool to hear you guys are taking some very proactive steps.
Well, I say this with love. It's hard to change things at ULTRA4 sometimes. This is how we've done it. It does its stuff. It works. Don't mess with it. But this year has really given us a chance. And Dave, quite frankly, has really empowered, myself. He's empowered Ryan. He's empowered Scott. And so we've got a chance to try some things different since it is such a disruptive year as it is anyway, all in the spirit of making the experience better for our racers, our fans, our sponsors. So I don't like this year, but I'm grateful for this year because I think it gives us a chance to try some things that'll just make the whole sport and the whole experience better going forward.
Love to hear that. So we talked about like how tight things are going to be, certainly with strategy. There's going to be some call outs because there's a lot of things on the line with this race because of what it is and when it is and being the last race of the year and national titles being what they are. Moab was kind of the first chance to see the USAC timing system in play. How did that play out? Do you guys have an instilled confidence now after the problems that we'd had over the past couple of years with timing and finishes?
Absolutely. Again, this is one of those areas where we're getting a chance to try something different. And USAC has been doing this for years in other race series and events. Certainly, we pose some additional challenges just because of the rock and the remote location. But Moab was a great experience to figure out what worked and what didn't work. And it was actually very smooth from a timing perspective. One of the things we do the Monday after every race is sit down and capture what worked, what didn't work. We take notes. Again, Ryan Thomas is very organized about, hey, learn and apply what we learned to the next one. So you'll see timing be even tighter at nationals. And of course, all of this is pointing towards just making it turnkey, reliable, and trustworthy. So when we get to hammers and future races and beyond, I don't have to check memes of KOH to see how we're getting lampooned to that particular event because of timing. So, you know what? We've got an independent third party. They're very good at what they do. And I'm really excited we made that change because it takes a lot of the drama and guesswork out of it. They're good at what they do.
Just lends confidence all the way around the board. And we've seen that confidence eroded. And, there's a lot of grace to be given. But when it's, endless and continuous, it's like, okay, guys, we're over it. Let's get our proverbial, crap together.
Again, a great example of being able to know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and go find people who are great at it if it's a gap. And it's a gap we had, and we're really excited to partner with USAC. We think it'll make a big difference.
First and foremost, thank you for the insight on what we have coming up here at Nationals. I'm pretty excited. I don't live that far away. It's still a 7.5 hour drive. But, when you live in Texas, it's kind of everywhere is a day drive, no matter what. So, and based on, I've got some meetings on that, on Friday morning. So I'm actually going to fly up. I'm going to fly to Dallas and grab a rental car and join you guys, be there for qualifying Friday afternoon. And then, you brought up Chip a little while ago. Last Nationals, Chip had a flamethrower. That was always, something fun that everyone needs in their pit space is a flamethrower. That was pretty solid, Chip. So please bring that again. And yeah, we will have a good time. And Alan, I absolutely can't wait to see you in person. So it's very cool that we're getting right from the horse's mouth from Ultra4, kind of some of the details. You just gave us a ton of insight on the course. So people will hear this. They've got a couple days to plan for strategy as they're loading and packing up to head to South Central Oklahoma. All right, Alan, shifting gears. Let's get into, let's flashback. Let's go, why people are here, really to talk about you. That's my plan.
Flashback's the right word for it.
What are you? If I do my math right, you're what, about 48?
48, be 49. I'll actually be 49 in February. King of the Hammers and my birthday parties figure in quite solid. But yes, I'm reaching the point where I can say pushing 50.
Yeah, you're getting close. You actually, when I've watched you buzz around the media tent in Hammertown, you buzz around like somebody who's in their 20s or somebody who definitely doesn't drink a bunch of beer the night before. Which
whiskey's good for you. Beer's not.
Fair statement. I like that statement as well. So, were you born in Arkansas?
Ironically, I wasn't. I was born in Anaheim, California. Grew up in Laguna Hills. We lived there until I was 7. But both sets of my parents and all my grandparents all grew up in Arkansas. So California in the late 70s wasn't exactly where you wanted to raise kids. So we moved to Northwest Arkansas. And I grew up in Heber Springs, Arkansas. I consider that home. It's the type of place where you can walk down Senior Hall in the high school and see pictures of your mom and all her brothers and sisters, your grandparents and all their brothers and sisters. And was just really blessed and late to almost a John Cougar Mellencamp style small American Midwest town. It was just fantastic. I loved it.
And today you live in Bella Vista, right?
Right. Now I live in Northwest Arkansas. My wife and I laughed for a long time. We lived up and down I-40 for a decade, right? We lived in Memphis. We lived in Little Rock. We lived in Nashville. We lived back in Memphis. But we never spent much time up in the northern part of the state. And my son, who I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, goes to the University of Arkansas. My sister lives up here in Pea Ridge. So we went and visited Northwest Arkansas, and we're just blown away. It's Walmart's world headquarters. So there's a lot of tax-based money here, but there's these outstanding mountain bike trails and Beaver Lake. And I don't know, it's just a really, really cool part of the state to live in because there's good restaurants and Crystal Bridges Museum and stuff, but it's still Southern and friendly, and you wave when you pass people on the road. So really digging it up.
Now I've partied at University of Arkansas for, many, many times and actually had a 365-day ban from the city of Springdale, Arkansas for some antics back in that era in the late 90s of partying down there.
Oh no. When I moved on the questionnaire, do you know Wyatt? And I lied. That's the only reason why they let me up here. So we're good.
Yeah, we're good. Oh, that is a beautiful part of the country. Do you get out to Casper?
I don't much. I mean, it's really, weird. I'm weird. What am I saying? There's one of those things. I travel all the time. So when I'm home, I tend to stay around home. I like to fish around here. I play with my dogs, walk them, go to the dog park, stuff like that. But I really don't do much around home just because I'm here so infrequently. I really want to enjoy it.
Fair enough. So growing up, did you have any siblings, or are you only child?
It depends on who you talk to. I act like I'm an only child, but I do have two sisters and a brother, but I'm the oldest. So I guess I'm the only child that matters, if you want to put it that way. And I know they're listening and they can't say anything back, so I will do that. But no, I've got a younger sister, Jenny, who's 2 years younger than me. Little sister, Maggie, who's 8 years younger. My little brother, David, who's 10 years younger. My sister lives in Pea Ridge, and her husband, Sean's head ranger at Beaver Lake. Just a wonderful family and their kids. And they live out in the country. So on Sundays, that's where we go shooting. We can go out there and, put a few rounds through and just kind of relax. Love it. My little sister, Maggie, is actually in full-time ministry. She and her husband travel with a group of young people and go to churches and basically do revivals geared towards couples. So they spend 8 months a year on the road with their 4 kids, all 10 and under. I can't imagine. And then my little brother, David, fortunately moved up here a couple years ago. He's a Marine, has done a couple tours and just, man, I just love my little brother more than anyone on the face of the planet. So I'm tickled to death he's up here close. So that was part of the reason we moved back, was to be near family and let our kids be near family before they went off to college. And I've got a real good crew.
And I didn't go into, I know at some point it was going to come up, but when you say move back, I remember, and we'll, again, jumping forward and back at the same time, you lived in Phoenix, and that was kind of where you got into off-road. And how long ago did you move from Phoenix back to Arkansas?
I am not going to lie. I fell in love hard with the desert. I'd never even been to Phoenix until 2 weeks before I started a job out there. And I knew I'd gone native one year when the desert was a little bit less beige. And I said, ooh, it's awfully green this year. But that's where I met my off-road family. That's where I fell in love with wheeling and crawling and hanging out with all the Jeep clubs, and really just grew a lot out in the desert and loved it. Stayed really connected, would come back to Arkansas every year, sometimes twice a year. My wife's family's all from Arkansas as well. But my dad had a longer-term illness, had COPD. He was a mechanic for years and years and years, and all those chemicals and things like that, just a number on the lungs, and was just really blessed to have an opportunity to be here during his last year before he passed. Everything just worked out. We were able to move back here. My son was already going to college here. My mom and dad had moved up here. So yeah, it was absolutely the right reason to move home. May was 3 years. I've been back almost 3.5 years now. So
time flies, doesn't it?
Man, it's just weird. Time is an accordion. It goes really fast and really slow depending on what's going on.
Well, sorry to hear about the loss of your father. I mean, that doesn't sit well, for anybody on any level, but if he gave you anything, it was the ability to, that move back to Arkansas to be worth it, and to, be able to, I guess, celebrate, his life with, all your family right there, and you're able to participate, right?
Oh, you bet. And my dad's always with us. My love of music comes from him. My son is almost like watching a version of him and my grandfather. So, Dad's legacy is super strong, and we miss him tremendously. I mean, I'll get emotionally ambushed sometimes. A certain Neil Young song will come on, and I'll get all choked up. But, enough time has passed that I'm just super grateful for the time I did have with Dad, the lessons he taught us, the example he set for us, both as husbands, but as fathers. We're all trying really hard to live up to his standard. Miss the heck out of him. But like I say, he's here with us every day.
So as a kid, what were your curiosities, and along with that, what did you want to be when you grew up one day? When you were, and Alan was going to be an adult, when he's going to have to adult one day, what did he want to be?
I was going to be an investment banker in Boston who drove a Jag. Michael P. Keaton was my hero. So yes, I was born in 72. I'm a child of the 80s, and I don't know. I think I watched The Equalizer and saw an XJ6 with dove gray leather interior and a walnut dash, and I had my whole life figured out by 6th grade. So that was my plan. Investment banker, Boston, Jaguar.
And today you are Jeeps and Jaguars.
Well, I always have a little bit of that Jaguar in there. That's why I drove an XJ for so long, so I didn't say XJ and pretend it was either a Jeep or a Jaguar, because they're both XJs. But no, I loved it. And it was just something about that look and that feel. I loved English cars. At the time, I thought I wanted money. Obviously, I've had some life since then, and money's nice. Lord knows you got to pay the bills, but there's a lot more important things than that. And ironically, that's actually how it, those are really a conflated story, if you will. I mean, let's be really clear. In school, I had no friends or social skills. I read books. I was the drum major. It was pretty much me, just shorter and fatter. It's just kind of the way it is. I actually had a Marine Corps ROTC scholarship to go to Boston University. That was my plan. And that's how I was going to pay for school and do all that. And in between my junior and senior year of high school, ironically, I do have a story that starts with this one time at band camp. I was coming back from band camp and fell asleep and just ran off the road, 17 years old, and went through the windshield and smashed my face and my nose and eye socket and cheekbone and lower jaw are all reconstructed. And, quite frankly, should have died. That has been a massive impact and influence on my life, both good and bad. But its first immediate influence was Marine Corps doesn't want someone with a broken face. So my scholarship, my dream, going to Boston, my Jaguar and all that literally went away with a really long blink.
How'd that impact you? I mean, mentally, that had to have just destroyed you, right?
It was weird. I went through a phase where, hey, you're 17, you almost die. When you're 17, you feel bulletproof anyway. I went to the other extreme with, I should have died, so who cares? And it was just really reckless for 4 or 5 years. Obviously, I talk a lot. I like to talk a lot. I like to use my power for good, if you will. And I try to encourage people and try to build them up. And I really try to look for the best in people. I was the opposite of that for about 5 years. I was pretty much a butthead, as a spouse, as a friend, as whatever.
I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine you like that.
Well, but it was true. It was one of those things where I had everything going for me, but there was a part of me going, this is borrowed time anyway, screw it. And so just really didn't have my head on straight. Yet again, this is hysterical because there's a movie called Sliding Doors. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure we're not all huge Gwyneth Paltrow fans, but it's a fascinating movie about she's going down the stairs and misses the subway. And then it shows her going down the stairs and she catches the subway. And in one instance, she goes home and catches her boyfriend cheating. In the other, she doesn't. And it shows how her life goes down 2 different paths just because of one choice. And I would never have gone to Memphis State if I hadn't had my accident. I would never have met my wife. I would never have gone more towards the artsy side of things because I went the complete opposite of investment banker. And I became a history and music major and started playing in bands. I wouldn't have my kids if I hadn't had that wreck because I wouldn't have met my wife. So in retrospect, that's probably the most significant thing that ever happened to me, good, bad, and ugly. And it certainly colored my whole life since then.
So a real inflection point.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Just absolutely. You may have 2 or 3 of those moments in your life. Sometimes you recognize them in the moment, sometimes you don't. But looking back, that was absolutely an inflection point. You grow up really fast at that point. Yeah, it was super significant. Never forgotten it. And to some degree or not, people ask, do you have regrets, this or that? I don't. I've done stupid stuff. I've done a bunch of stuff, but it's all led me to who and where I am. And I think it gives me empathy for people. I think it gives me a perspective to put myself in other people's shoes. And I think it's part of what drives me to want to help other people is just that level of empathy that came from being such an emotional and physical wreck at age 17.
Well, I think you grew up hard and fast at that point. Like you went through trauma. I mean, that's exactly what trauma is. It's going to reshape you. What was the catalyst to turn things around, to embrace the suck? What was the thing that happened to you to flip the switch the other direction? Because that is 180 degrees, what you're describing, 180 degrees from the guy that I know.
For me, honestly, it was church and kids. Jennifer, I met Jennifer my freshman year of college, proposed 3 months after meeting her, and we were married 8 months after I met her. I've never been known to be indecisive. Yep, that's the one. We're coming up on 30 years this May, but I mean, we grew up together. So we took at least 5 or 6 years before we decided to have a family. And that's where a lot of that just kind of hard living and fun stories that sometimes I remember and sometimes I don't come from. But when she was pregnant, something about having babies tends to make mamas want to go to church. And I wasn't going to fight it. I'd grown up in the church. My grandpa was a preacher, for goodness sake. I could play this game. Well, church had changed a lot since I was a kid. And it was a focus on a relationship with Christ. It was a focus on, forgiveness and serving others and love, and really had to go through a lot of counseling and healing to learn to love myself before I could love others. But that was the real, catalyst that changed who I was as a husband, as a father, how I try to be in my day-to-day life. Again, I go down that route a long time. People ask, and I know that's not what we were trying to do, but for me, that was genuinely the difference maker, and something that continues to make a difference, 22 years later.
We don't get to pick the things that shape us, right?
Yep.
They tend to happen. I mean, don't get me wrong. You choose to sign up in the Marine Corps and they shape you, right? That there are some of those instances, but yeah, by and large, it's passive. It's not an active selection. So Jennifer, when you guys were at Memphis State, you meet her. How did you first meet her? How did that go down?
Oh my goodness sakes. She is, first of all, just amazing. And she doesn't know how to work a podcast, so she will never hear this. So I can say really nice things and not be self-conscious about it. I was at a friend's house. I didn't know anyone at Memphis, right? This was a last minute decision to go to Memphis State because my whole life had just gone away in a car crash. And my roommate knew a buddy at someone's house, and we went over there. And oh my goodness, here was this beautiful woman who knew how to play cards. Playing cards was a big thing in my family. Hearts, spades, just okie rummy, all the stuff you play in a rural setting with your grandparents and your great aunts. She kicked my butt. She was so good at cards. And, we were also making it a drinking game, so I might have been a little drunk. But by the end of the night, she was absolutely my hero. Well, it turns out my roommate had a little crush on her, too. We're both a couple little, we'll see 18-year-old freshmen at college. And we lay in our bunks. He's like, "You going to ask her out?" I'm like, yeah, I'll ask her out. Next night, "You ask her out?" "No." "Would you mind if I ask her out?" "Yeah, you ask her out." And we did this for 2 or 3 weeks. But we were at a bonfire down on the Mississippi River and busted her ankle really bad. And it's the funniest thing, right? When you're least trying to impress someone is when you impress them the most.
True story.
And you may have discovered this, but I've got a little bit of a mother hen instinct in me. As much as I like to show bravado and, I'm this wild, crazy, let's go do stuff. When the chips are down, I typically like to take care of people and help. So I picked her up, carried her back the car, drove her back to campus, carried her up 2 or 3 flights of stairs, put ice on her thing, drove her to the doctor, whole 9 yards. Literally not trying to be Mr. Impressive. And evidently that's when I was Mr. Impressive.
You literally swept off her feet.
Yeah, well, it helped that she fell. But, I was at least there to catch her. And then, that's when we started, actually dating from there. She could see me as a life partner and someone that was the type of person that she would want to spend her life with. And, for me, it was just love at first sight. She was pretty and she would talk to me. "Marry me." I was all
there you
in.
Go.
All in.
Is she into off-roading?
She is not. We actually went through a period, especially living there in Arizona. We just had to figure out what that balance was. I would get mad if she didn't want to go off-roading with me because I took it as her, rejecting a sport and group of people I loved. And she would get mad that I would want to go off-roading after working all week and not want to spend time with her. And again, that's another area where some of the stuff they offer through the church, we went through some classes and learned to talk to each other and realized we were both wrong. So she's very supportive of racing and going out and off-roading. It's not her bag. And so I stopped trying to really force her and drive her into that. And we find stuff that we can do together that we enjoy. And I think we got a nice healthy balance, for now. I'm sure I just jinxed it. But for right now, we've got a good healthy balance.
I swear you just described my wife. She fully supports all of this, but you won't catch her in the dirt. She's gone and she's okay without it. Fully can leave it.
Oh, you bet. And you know what? It took me a while to be okay with that because I'm obviously a little bit passionate about stuff. And why don't you love this as much as I love this? I just having to learn that, not everyone's just the world the same way and different doesn't mean wrong. So that was really cool. Took us years to get there, but it was really cool.
So you guys are effectively empty nesters right now, right?
Yes. I guess I shouldn't
solid.
be that excited about it, but yes.
Yeah. You're still paying for their college, but
Well, yes and no. I mean, I was 22 years old, and he's got a full ride Air Force ROTC scholarship to the University of Arkansas. Thank you, everyone who's listening who pays taxes for helping pay for my son's education. And he will do his best to pay it back. And man, talk about fish in water. It's like that boy was made for Air Force. I'm just really proud of him and the decisions he makes. He's getting a mechanical engineering degree. So that's why he's in his 5th year. It took just a little bit of extra time. And he's still qualified for pilot at this point. So that's his dream is to be a pilot in the Air Force. So he's wrapping up one phase of his journey and about to, this time next year, he'll be stationed somewhere. So that's interesting. And then my daughter, who's 19, who I freaked out last week because I told her, hey, you're almost 20. And she had a meltdown over 20. I'm like, give it time. Talk to me again at 40, which would be awesome because that would mean I was 80. So I would be really cool if she would talk to me at that. She goes to a little small private Christian university here up in Northwest Arkansas, and she's getting an art degree, art and illustration, which you would think, what, you're paying for an art degree? Well, my wife's got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in painting also. So this is my second art degree I'm buying. And they're both for lovely women who love their art degrees.
Well, I had to look it up where she goes to school because she goes to John Brown University, and everyone knows Miles, and then myself. We're from the same little town in Kansas, and the town near us, Osawatomie, Kansas, is known for John Brown. They have John Brown Jamboree. John Brown. I know the history of John Brown burning Kansas and all of that happened. Around slavery and around the Civil War. That was, John Brown is this, this folk hero in our part of the world. And so I'm like, I didn't know in his history. I don't feel like he was ever in Arkansas. So I had to go look up the university. What's the history of this? No, it was a completely different John Brown, which makes sense. John Brown's two of the most common names.
Oh, the other John Brown.
Yeah. Other one.
The university just celebrated their 100-year anniversary last year. It's run mostly with a foundation and gifts from alumni and stuff. It's a much smaller school experience. Again, that's part of what we found. We visited lots of campuses with both kids, and neither one was going after a particular degree that required them to go to a certain school for political reasons, right? They didn't have to go to Harvard to do this or didn't have to go to Stanford to do that. So we just wanted them to be a place where they were comfortable. We prayed about it. That's where they wanted to be, because it was important for them to finish what they committed to. And the environment has a lot to do with that. And I ruined Ivan. I wanted him to be a Razorback. So he grew up a Razorback fan, even though he lived in Arizona. So that's all he wanted to do. But that wasn't Kate's vibe. She didn't particularly want to go to a big school. And she just fell in love with a small school, small class size, really quaint campus. And just so proud. And that's one of the things as parents. I know some of the people listening don't have kids. Some of the people listening have younger kids. Man, I'm telling you, it's really cool to not only love your kids, but to like your kids as well as they become young adults. That's one of the most flattering things as a parent, to look at them and say, they're actually good people. And I'm proud of that. And it takes a village, but I don't know, just super proud of both kids. I think they're doing a great job. Yes, that's dad talking, and I'm biased.
That's fair.
People who have met Ivan will back up. He's decent, and he's more like his mother. I've kept Kate from everyone because she's more like me, and no one needs two me's. So we're good.
That's hilarious. Well, are you guys, I mean, you're obviously Razorback fans, but has he been go to games now that you're up in that part of the world? I know this year's been funky, but Arkansas has been playing. Have you made it to any of the ball games?
Yeah, you know what? This technically counts as a legal record. We got screwed by the refs, by the way, and we beat Auburn. I just want to say right now, we should be 2-1.
I was just about to bring that up because that was one of the best games on last weekend.
I'm a lifelong Razorback fan, and we've got a 20-year cycle. We were great in the late 60s. We sucked in the 70s. Great in the last 80s, sucked in the 90s. So, we're midway through the suck cycle again. So it's really nice to have Coach Sam Pittman and to have some hope and competitive football team. But yeah, he lived on campus his first 2 years directly across from Reynolds Razorback Stadium. Being in ROTC, he did the color guard for most of those. In fact, he pulled some strings and got me in as accredited media. So if anyone asks, driving line shot a University of Arkansas game at one point. I got to be on the sidelines and,
that's awesome.
Technically I was shooting the color guard, but yeah, he very involved in campus life and has done his dear old dad a solid and helped me be involved in campus life as well.
Yeah, I don't even have words for that. That's super cool. So you have been fully involved up there. Well done.
Yeah, I love it.
I want to jump back to a Memphis State story. So what year did you graduate Memphis State?
Actually, I only went to Memphis State in 90 and 91. That's where I met Jennifer. We both couldn't afford out-of-state tuition, so we moved back to Arkansas after we got married and went to the University of Central Arkansas. So I went to school there in 90 and 91, but I lived there in 94. I lived there in 97 and 98. So I've got quite a Memphis history.
You said history. How did you end up with a major in history? How how does one decide that's going to be their passion of study?
I love reading, remembering, and learning. And history was great because not only could you read, which again, I've always got a book. That's what I do on planes. I really enjoy reading. Mostly fiction, doesn't matter. I just like reading. But history was also about understanding and thinking and drawing conclusions. And I don't know, it was fascinating to me because you could learn from it. And I sucked at math. So that was about as far away from math as I could possibly get. So yeah, that was my field of study, was as a history major.
That is fascinating. I ran away from math.
I suck at math. I had a math teacher pull me aside and said, Alan, stop trying to figure out why math works. Just use the formula. And that was my problem. I was trying to figure out why physics worked. And I am not wired to figure out why physics or calculus or any of that stuff works. I just need to memorize the formula and go on. And that was actually one of my first areas to realize you don't have to know everything. Surround yourself with people that are experts in those areas. And I learned real quick I was not the math expert. So I have always professionally and personally surrounded myself with people that are better than me. If I'm ever the smartest guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room. And I learned that in a math class.
Well, I think, along those lines, I almost think that's almost a cliche at this point, the, smartest guy in the room, the whole Enron story on that. My belief on that is surround yourself with people that you aspire to be. If your dreams are to do whatever X, surround yourself with people that are doing X and are the best at doing X. Don't be sitting here wanting to be an X, but you're surrounding yourself with Y people.
So I partially agree. Professionally, I love to surround myself with people that I aspire to be. And I look for people around me that I aspire to be. I almost feel selfish every year at King of Hammers because I get paid to have a master class with Emily. Emily Miller is a friggin' genius, and I get paid to learn working with someone I aspire to be like. But I also like to spend time around everybody. You can learn something from everybody, and everyone doesn't have to be a mentor or a hero. Everyone's got a story. So I like to just surround myself with people. I try to pick and choose who I emulate and want to follow. But I just really enjoy being around people. Now, there are some individuals I don't enjoy being around, but people in general, I'm really drawn to groups like that.
Well, my statement on that is I love humans. I hate people.
That's fair.
That's kind of where I'm at. Don't get me wrong. I love the human race. I love, there's so many friends, but on a macro level, abso-freaking-lutely. On a micro level, oh man, some of these folks, you just want to have their, ask them, have they had their head examined? But then I'm certain they're looking directly back at me saying and thinking the exact same thing. So
I'm trying really hard to figure out why Dave wanted to put someone who likes people, who seems to get along with everybody, in a communication social media position. It just seems like a real mismatch, for personality type and job role.
Well, Dave likes everybody. I mean, he's a real people person. That's
exactly. It seems redundant. So I just always ask myself, what would Dave do? And that's how I handle almost every situation.
The bridge that you have to cross before you get into that mindset is he likes you as long as you agree with him. If you don't agree, we're not giving Dave enough credit. I
was going to say, not necessarily. And again, we're all people. We all like where we're coming from, but part of why I'm even at ULTRA4, frankly, is I get to see a different side of Dave. I get to see something that makes it worth my time to be there and invest in a sport that I like. And a lot of it truly is, beyond the I blew up on you side of things, which he's actually gotten much better at. He genuinely cares. He'll do anything for about anyone. I tried to have a conversation with him last week where we need to talk business. He spent 10 minutes bragging on how awesome his daughter's doing playing bass guitar. So that's the Dave I know and love and really enjoy doing stuff with ULTRA4.
No, I will fully back you up on that. Dave has one of the biggest hearts of anyone I know.
Yep.
There was a wreck in Las Vegas a couple races ago in Best in the Desert, and it was a fatality accident. There was a truck that got totaled and some things. It was all around nasty. Dave was trying to get in touch with, it was an ULTRA4 driver who was going to be in that race truck, and the race truck was on the trailer. It came off and was sitting in the middle of the interstate. It was just all around bad. Dave was trying to get a hold of that guy to say, hey, I have a brand new Ford sitting over there at Olagus All August Ford there in Vegas. You're welcome to it for all of Vegas to Reno. Go get the truck, use it. And they ultimately didn't end up taking Dave up on the offer, but for Dave to offer up a 0 mile I think it's an F450, just go get it, use it for the race. And we know how trucks get treated on races. They are, they're workhorses of the desert, but they get lived in for days, and they're not the best taken care of or cared for. It's kind of the goal is still get the race car across the line. So
again, Dave's Dave, and he'll be the first one to tell you Dave is Dave, good, bad, and ugly, but you know who he is and where you stand. And I certainly have enjoyed getting to know him better and to see that side of him, because I just got to see a racer side for 5 years. And looking at it from the other end, I can't believe he's as calm as he is. It is freaking insane the week of King of the Hammers, all the demands that's going on, everything that could potentially go wrong. So, a change of perspective certainly changed my view and respect level on that.
Well, he subscribes to our theory that we've been discussing here, even not even theory, a mantra about surrounding yourself with the best. Surround yourself with the best. And he has done an amazing job of, from Ryan Thomas to JT Taylor to you to Emily Miller to, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It is a laundry list of it's an all-star team. It's literally
I don't know, man. That JT character is kind of sketchy. I wonder, crap, JT's outside my window. Ah! No, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. With a fork.
He knew I was going to say that. No. And again, that's what I'm drawn to, the ULTRA4 team, but also the drivers, the ecosystem around it. It's just a really cool thing that attracts really interesting and smart and innovative people. And that is very, very attractive to me. So again, part of why I love the sport and the family and ULTRA4 specifically is it really attracts quality people.
Zero disagreement from this side of the microphone. Let's talk about Nashville. How on earth and when did you end up in Nashville doing what you're doing? Because I'm going to let you roll that out. You're going to have to tell us why you were in Nashville and for 4 years that you were living there. Why? Because I'm flipping curious, just so curious at this point, a side I'd never thought I'd see.
I love Nashville. And in fact, until I had a love affair with Phoenix, that was the favorite place I had ever lived. Fantastic town. But yeah, this was mid-90s. Everyone was getting out of college at the time. I played music since second grade, piano player.
You play the drum too, right?
No, I play guitar and bass, but not drums. I program drums. Talk about influential. Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails just changed my life musically when I realized I could have a band with a laptop. I traded a car for a laptop to sequence music. And that was in Nashville, ironically. But at this point, I'm 22, 23, 24-ish. Everyone's done the college thing. My wife's got her degree. We don't have a family yet. And the band was going pretty good. So we decided to take a couple of years and moved to Nashville with the whole rest of the band. The band's name was Stevens Law. We lived in a big 2-story house with a basement. We all took night jobs so we could practice during the day and not piss the neighbors off. And, we made a serious run at playing music for 2 or 3 years and, loved it. We were good. We were fun. Obviously, it didn't pan into a career. But that was, again, one of those things where I'm so grateful I got a chance to just live that gypsy life and chase that dream and not spend my whole life wondering, what if? And my wife was selling paintings at the time. But again, all these things working together, my part-time job was Kinko's. I worked Sunday through Thursday at Kinko's. Not only could I get free flyers, I could be off on Friday and Saturday to go gigging. But that's where I learned Macintosh. That's where I learned how to use computers. And again, skill sets that literally pay for a much better paying job today was learned working at a Kinko's in Nashville in the mid-90s. So that was a blast. We got to travel, got to do all our stuff, all the standard band things. I cannot tell you how grateful I was to actually celebrate my first New Year's Eve and not be playing. But piano player is a part of me, and that was fun to let that be the main focus for a good 4 years. And I still play regularly. I played in church for years when we were there in Nashville, taught both my kids how to play. So music is a big part of my escape and what I do. I love road tripping. I drive from Arkansas to Johnson Valley every year. Part of it is just to listen to tunes in the car and see God's country and do back roads and stuff like that. So that very much is a key part of who I am and what I am. And it's all different styles and genres. I lived in Memphis and Nashville for so long, blues has ruined me. You can put me in front of a Hammond B3 organ and start a 145 blues riff, and we will drink beer and play music for the next 6 hours straight. You give me a good ZZ Top cover band and stuff like that, and that's just right in my wheelhouse. But yeah, Nashville was fantastic. And towards the end of it, we decided it was time, to start real jobs. I'd been married 7 years at that point, and Jennifer and I were ready to start a family, and work took me to Memphis at the time. And that's how we left Nashville. But always just one of my favorite places. And how in your memory, you build something up as kind of that golden period. And Nashville was kind of my golden period. It was mid-20s, doing stuff you love with people you love. Pretty magical time. I'm sure it wasn't as awesome as my memory thinks it is, but absolutely one of my favorite towns on the face of the planet.
Well, we have the ability to romanticize about those things,
right?
When you look back at memories or you think back to memories, yeah, you definitely romanticize them. They get glossied, right? You gloss them, you gloss them up a little.
But that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hugging those warm, glossy memories gets you through some cloudy days every once in a while. And again, you kind of have to have that comfort memory to go to, because as we're all aware, some days, suck, but it's just always fun to take that trip back to, this or that. We actually went back last summer. Our daughter wanted to take a trip before she went to her freshman year of college, and she wanted to go to Nashville. She'd heard us talk about it her entire life. And we went and saw the old house. She drank coffee at the old coffee house we drank at by Bellevue, University. And it was fascinating to experience Nashville through my 18-year-old daughter's eyes as she was going to record stores and discovering things that we had discovered at about her same age, 20 years before. So I don't know, still a cool town, romanticized or not. I always have learned to look forward. What's the next thing? You can't go back. I love hanging on and hugging those old memories, particularly the warm, shiny ones. And that's certainly Nashville.
So you guys went from Nashville to Memphis for work, and then somewhere in there, you end up moving to Phoenix.
Yeah, stopped in Little Rock for a little bit too. Like I say, we lived up and down I-40. I'd spent probably 10 years in retail, if you count Kinko's like retail. And I was out golfing with a buddy from church, a guy named Ted Klauser, and he goes, "Man, you talk a lot. Have you considered sales?" And I'm like, "No, but I do talk a lot." And he owned a small computer company called PC Assistants. And they were going to start selling this dental software called, Dentrix. And I didn't know anything about software, didn't know anything about sales, and barely went to the dentist. Sure, I'm in. And that, honestly that was in the year 2000. That started a 20-year career in dentistry that, again, no one sits down and says, "Ooh, I want to be in dentistry my whole life." Yet you turn around and blink and you spent 20 years in a certain industry. And it's a pretty amazing journey. But that was the big pivot. And that, spent 2 or 3 years in Arkansas selling software there, and had an opportunity to go into a consulting role to apply my business background, my computer software development background, and my sales background, do it as a business consultant for a firm in Phoenix. So that's how we ended up there. It was weird. Never been out there. Didn't really pick it, but the Lord will put things on your heart, and I felt it was the right thing, and my wife came to me and felt it was the right thing. And we took a big step of faith, which is a story unto itself, and literally found the next phase of our life, and where our kids grew up, and some of the closest people that we consider family in our lives, Bob McNeely and Andrew McLaughlin and Michael Dobby and others, all came from the 12 years we spent in Phoenix. My kids consider Phoenix home. That's what they grew up. They were 5 and 7 when we moved. So to them, Phoenix was home.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's, I can absolutely see that. So, well, let's talk about your role today. You're still selling dental software. You work for Patterson Dental, very big, dental company. Were you with them in Phoenix, or did they allow you to move anywhere? Or
That was kind of a funny story. I worked for them for 4 years in Little Rock. Took a different opportunity, which took me to Phoenix. It's still in the dental area. In fact, it was working with small businesses. That's actually part of what got me into marketing, working with small businesses such as dentists, and, developing teams and recruiting the right players and doing business strategies. And again, my whole working career has been like getting paid to go to college. It's really, really cool. Well, it was so cool that Patterson Dental bought us 7 years ago. So suddenly I was the old new guy that came over. We had developed a software called OnTrack, which was goal setting and metrics and matrix and things where, again, you'd set goals, it measured your performance. This was one of the early cloud softwares, and it was something that they wanted to buy. So I found myself back at Patterson, but much higher up the food chain at that point. So I've been very involved in building new software, living in the cloud space. One of the things I'm really good at, and I don't say this, braggy, I just say this, and again, knowing your strengths and knowing your opportunities, I'm good at envisioning things. I'm good at picturing the final product. I really like coming up with creative solutions. I'm not so good at the details between here and there. So I got to work with a team where I could help dream new software and how do we migrate to the cloud and how do we, really make the user experience, really good. And I've been partnered with a phenomenal development team that's much smarter than me that can actually go build that stuff. So again, it's kind of a weird day job for me. And it's funny. There's a whole group of people who only know me in suits. And there's a whole group of people who only know me in camo cargo shorts and my Dusty Gnome persona. But, they're all different parts of me, ways to be creative, ways to make a difference, ways to impact people. I just love the off-road part a lot more. But the not off-road part pays a lot better.
Well, yeah, for sure it does. I get a crack up out of your social media selfies. You are you're this king of the. Once I get on the airplane, I sit down and take a selfie. And for all of us who we know you clearly have a life outside of off-road, clearly have a life outside of Ultra4, where you're not wearing a black flat bill flex fit cap, not wearing a pair of sunglasses, not having a what do you call the dust kind of towel? It's not towel, but it's a rag that you wrap around your head.
It's a schmog, but my daughter calls it my off-road scarf. So it has become known as my off-road scarf here at the house.
And you're routinely pictured in that. So that's what. So you have this image. That's the image, and that's what's burned in our head. But then you go to social media and you see Alan sitting on a plane. Clean cut, clean shaven, no hat, no sunglasses, no schmuck, around you. You're good.
Well, and that's half the joke. Obviously, I like to joke. I like to have fun. The airplane selfie actually started with Michael Davi and a part of the Higher Ground 4x4 club. Because Michael hates selfies, hates social media, hates self-absorbed a-holes that take selfies all the time. So, of course, my job was to take a selfie all the time when I'm in an airport or a plane and do it in black and white because that makes it artsy. And it just kind of turned into its own thing. I mean, I love that you appreciate and get a kick out of that, but that's literally the back end of a 7-year practical joke between Michael Davi and I. That is one of my favorite things about travel.
The long play. That's what that is. That's just the long play.
It is. Hey, just be glad we didn't start with bathroom shots or my social media would be a completely different animal.
Yeah, no comment, right? No comment. I think that like Roxy would appreciate that. Roxy likes her a good bathroom. She will take pictures of bathroom stall doors. That's her thing.
I'm scared to death of Roxy. So whatever Roxy says is right. Amen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what most everyone else has implemented as well with her. Through all of this pandemic and, working remotely and Zoom calls and video calls, which was interesting enough that my whole setup, I don't know what's going on. I've just had a kind of a bad run of interviews. The interviews have been awesome. The content's been awesome,
thanks.
But it's been, yeah, I'm blaming you. No, it's just the equipment. I had my ends to get it's something's out getting. It's like the Wi-Fi or it's the mic or it's the laptop. It's been kind of nonstop. I changed microphones here recently for this fall. I think I'm going to change them back. I think that's it. I messed with a good thing, and that's like the ULTRA4 thing, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. And
right.
And I tinkered. I feel like the world is coming apart on that. But where I was going with that was you actually put on your questionnaire. You had a funny story, and I assume it's during the pandemic that you're doing a Zoom call that you're wearing your.
Oh God!
You're wearing your dress shirt tie. Only
I'll set the stage a little bit here. This was in Arizona when I was younger and still cared, and we had just built this new software.
So it's not any time recent. This is even better.
Everyone can relate to this. This was, I was still a junior executive at the time, and this was back before, Patterson had bought us. And this was actually my big shot. The big bosses were setting up a demo with Patterson Dental, and I was going to get to demo this new software on track. So you know me, man, I overthink everything. I'm like, okay, I want to get up early. I want to go to the office. I'm more comfortable in the office. I'll be in my environment. I'm going to crush it. And I got up early and I made my cup of coffee and sat down on the recliner. And next thing I know, my wife shaking going, honey, didn't you have to go to work this morning? So I jump up just in a panic. I had fallen asleep in the chair. I'm in my drawers. I spilled coffee all over me. I've got 2 minutes to get set up for this demo. So I set everything up, nick of time. I log in just in time to hear, our president at the time say, all right, so we're going to turn it over to Alan to give the presentation. I lock up. Completely lock up. The words that came out of my mouth were the plan based on the plan, look at the pretty colors. I mean, something I spent 2 years of my life building, I couldn't even articulate, and just friggin' froze, just died. My CEO at the time recognized it and goes, you know what, we're having a little bit of a connection problem. We're going to give Alan a chance to get reconnected. Let me tell you a story. So he provides me cover. I step around the table, trip over the cord, fall on the floor, catch my laptop, land in the dog bowl. There's water everywhere. And my wife comes running around the corner. And evidently my face just said unemployed, because she starts calling down Jesus and Moses and Abraham and every saint known to man. And I'm dropping F-bombs left and right. And then, scared I hadn't unplugged my microphone and maybe I was F-bombing them, and just total and complete panic, and get everything set back up just in time to hear Dave say, so we'll turn it back over to Alan. Then I get the best demo of my life. So just one of those things, just the image of they didn't know that I'm in my drawers, laying in dog water in my kitchen in Phoenix, about to have a heart attack because I'm blowing my shot. That always stuck with me. So I'm really enjoying watching everyone learn how to do Zoom and work from home and be out of their comfort zone. And I've thoroughly enjoyed watching other people have their dog bowl moments trying to figure out technology. It's been highly entertaining seeing what goes on behind a camera, if you will, when people don't know their camera's on.
Or even when they know the camera's on. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like I can't tell you how many like Teams meetings I've had in the last week, just in the last month, couple months, 6 months, 8 months. What are we? We're 8 months into this 14-day.
Right. Hey, that curve should be flattened pretty soon, right?
Oh yeah.
But I still have people to this day, especially now that I'm working for Patterson, that were in that meeting, that every once in a while they'll just look at me and say, the plan is the plan based on the plan. Look at the pretty colors. Why are you working for us, you moron? And we all just laugh and have a good kick out of it. But that was one of the most panic moments involving technology I think I'd ever had. No pants, dog bowl, doing the biggest presentation of my life.
Well, I appreciate you telling that story, because that's a pretty bad story.
It's really bad if you visualize, because they were tidy whities.
Well, there was a scene on top. Picture, memory is burned.
Don't. We don't need to contribute to the national drinking habit of people picturing me in tidy whities. So we'll just move right on.
And on that note, so you're in Phoenix and you get into off-road. How did that leap happen? Was it a Jeep? Was it a Toyota? Was it a group of guys? Was it coworkers? How did you end up in that scene? And how did you end up like running around with like Andrew McLaughlin and that company?
Yeah. I had a motorcycle when I was younger, but I made the mistake of it being my daily driver. And, got hit by a little old lady, and I have a fake knee in my left knee. So I knew motorcycles were never really going to be my thing again, even though I love them and respect them. And I'm super jealous of Terry and everyone, in this motorcycle, culture. It's just not going to happen for me. But we moved to Arizona. I was flying most of the time, so I didn't need a great gas mileage car. The weather was perfect. So I bought a 91 TJ or a 91 YJ. 1-inch body lift, 31s, chrome tube bumper, brush guards front and rear. I was every starter kit, Jeep Wrangler out there. But I don't care. I loved it. I took the top off, took the doors off. It was a jungle gym for the kids. We do such soul-crushing trails as back way to Crown King and think we had really accomplished something. But what it did was help us fall in love with the desert, fall in love with the state, fall in love with exploring. And through that, I got connected with Higher Ground 4x4, local Jeep club. In fact, I met them when I was going to look at buy another Jeep. And you know me, I'm a shy, quiet wallflower. So I just walked up and started talking to them. We all became buddies. And just, again, some of my absolute best friends and brothers to this day. And started wheeling. Now, Andrew was part of the Undertakers, the Arizona Undertakers, the big bad boy off-road club there in Arizona. You know, Higher Ground, our symbol was the, you know, Jesus fish lifted on road tires. So, you know, we were the Christian boys you would call to go wheel with you if you had a hard obstacle and you wanted Jesus, you know, to wheel with you. But our approach was always one of just be ourselves. You know, we didn't beat anyone over the top. We were friends with everybody, but they knew we were Christians and knew we went to church. And that was kind of our deal. And it was fun. Ran with the Arizona Rock Rats back in the day. That was a really cool group of people. Joe Darrow, Hackle, all those guys. I know I'm dating myself for all the Arizona people, but the Rock Rats were a big influence on me of wanting to get, you know, tons and 40s and all that type of jazz. And I did. I worked my way up. I bought a Jeep. It actually turned out to be Toys by Troy's old competition Jeep. Aluminum, everything, force, you know, Atlas, whole 9 yards. Way too much Jeep for me. I had no idea how to drive it, but hey, I liked it. You know, got to be a rock crawler. Well, that was also coming up on my 40th birthday. And that was also when Dave announced this Everyman Challenge. Now, I'm not going to say it was a midlife crisis, but who doesn't want to be a race car driver?
Absolutely. So, everybody.
So that became my 40th birthday present myself. This was 6 months out. You know, the club's going to get together. We're going to go do a Jeep race. It was everybody's, you know, build the car in the garage. And Andrew was on one of the boards and reached out to me and said, hey, I'm racing this year too in the 4400 class. I would like to have a modified and a stock. Would you, you know, I'll help you if you'll help me. And that's where I really got to know Andrew and the Let's Roll Off-Road Racing team. And man, just immediately got engaged into a subculture that I fell in love with. We did a lot of the dirt ride races. Charlie Mauer's one of the biggest influences on me early. Because honestly, if I've got to give anyone credit for where I'm at now in what I'm doing, we were sitting in a really cheap hotel in Tucson. She was kind of going through a driver school meeting for everyone. She says, all right, everyone point to the person on your team that's a nerd that's always on their phone. And they all point to me and started laughing, right? I was the immediately identified nerd on the team. And she says, that's one of the most important people on your team. And then she talked about more. And you know what? Andrew really embraced that, you know, even though I can't weld and I can't fabricate, I mean, I am just in awe of these people who can take metal and just do works of art. There's so much innovation and brilliance in our sport. And again, I'm just in awe because I can't do that. But I can tell stories and do marketing and help put together sponsors. And I speak marketing. So when we're talking about impressions and marketing campaigns and how we're going to do this and do that, it helped me find a place on the team. And Andrew, besides being a really good friend, helped the rest of the team value that role. So that's part of how we worked with ESOB. That's part of how we kind of expanded our out of market. And, you know, always a lot of fun. Everyone's poking fun at you. I can't even show a wrench on Facebook without 15 people reminding me I'm not allowed to touch tools. But, you know, there's a lot just, you know, digging. But that's how I got to King of the Hammers. That's how I got to introduce it. Man, it was just an addiction. You know, went once and just couldn't believe it. Went to the next race, raced Dirt Riot, you know, Big Rich and Shelley. For the time period they were running that, Dirt Riot was exactly what it needed to be for drivers like me and Andrew to learn how to race, learn how to break our vehicles. It was a wonderful farm league that you raced and you did, and you made sure racing was for you. And then you moved up to ULTRA4. So it was 2014, I guess, before I started really racing ULTRA4. So I spent 2012 and 2013 kind of racing Dirt Riot.
So had you been to a King of the Hammers prior to making in your tree feet to 4,500?
Oh, no, I had no idea.
It. Yes.
And that first year, that was such a cluster. I know we said we couldn't drop other words, so I'll just say cluster and everyone can fill in the blank. But that first year, the EMC, I think we showed up on Saturday. We raced on Sunday. Most of us had to be back at work on Monday. We didn't even get to see King of the Hammers that year. We had no idea what we were doing. So I don't feel like I truly experienced King of the Hammers until 2013. And I'm to the point now where I can spend 10 or 12 days, and it is just literally the seminal event I schedule my whole year around is my King of the Hammers time. That is the end all be all for me. But yeah, I didn't even really know what King of the Hammers was, other than, Tony Pellegrino and Joe Darrow talking about it in the shop every once in a while. And this was 2 or 3 years in, and no one thought it would last. But hey, I didn't care. I was racing. Got to be a race car driver.
And now look where it is, right?
Right.
Charlene's amazing. She's also one of the first people in the scene, certainly the California off-road scene, that I got to interact with. And, she was involved with, Dave brought her in, Jeff Noel brought her in back in 2009. And I had the distinct, amazing adventure of spending, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 days in an RV with her and Wayne Israelson and DSI and,
wow,
the Slauson brothers, Adam Woodley.
Oh my God.
I mean, I just could start going. Chris Pook. God, I mean, Dan Barcroft.
Jeez, man, seriously. I'm so glad that bus didn't crash.
It was a pretty loaded bus, but yeah, Charlene and Wayne, I mean, you can't get better than that, but yeah, she's something else. And you never saw her without a camera or a camera bag back in those days, and even still somewhat today, but which is kind of how, when I see you, even if I see you buzzing around, you always still have your big camera with you.
Well, that's how it actually got started. You do that first year racing, and you go to look for your assets because you're trying to make your sponsors happy. You're trying to build social media presence. And, let's be honest, that first year racing, Let's Roll Off-Road, we weren't Campbell Enterprises, right? It wasn't like there were 50, photographers out there just looking for our car. We'd be thrilled if we could see the corner of a quarter panel in a passing shot, and because that was a need for the team. And I've always had a creative background anyway, whether it was with computers or graphic design or music or whatever, that some really high quality people, Will Gentile, I talked about already, but Kyle Wells, Doug Denault, Ryan DePonte. I mean, these guys didn't give me all their secrets, but they were accepting and open and helped encourage me, and would share tips or tricks. And I really watched them to see how race photographers behaved, how they worked, how they interacted with teams. And I just loved their work. And so it gave me something to emulate. And that's what I did. I would go out and I would shoot our stock class car. I would hop in my car. I would race a modified race, and I would get out and I would grab a camera and I'd go shoot Andrew's 4400 car, just so we had some content for our own marketing. And then it turned into, Hammers Week, and I would shoot all the other races. And again, just kind of worked my way up blue collar through the ranks just by putting in work. But even then, my approach, I knew I was no, Kyle Wells. So I would position myself at race mile 3, and I would be mom and just make sure I got a picture of everybody, because some cars don't make it to race mile 4. So that's how I got to know quite a few people, was just making sure I took it and just practice rep after rep after rep, and trying to learn from those around me, continuing to emulate people whose work I admire. And then it just kind of happened. It became a thing. And then JT started calling me the shutter gnome. And let's be frank, I'm 5'7". When I stand up straight, I'm not exactly, pro football material. So the gnome part stuck. And I'd always taught my kids, lean into it. Don't get offended about it. Just lean into it. I was Dusty, and I just kind of invented this Dusty Gnome persona because those social media handles were available on Instagram. And that kind of became an outlet for this alter ego photographer who wanted nothing more than to be Paolo Valdi in his life. I want to be that cool Italian dude who travels the world and takes photos and is just so cool. And, that'll never happen, but it's good to have aspirational dreams. When the time came to stop racing, which again, racing's in my blood and in my heart, and I miss it every single time I hear a car start up. You'll never get that out of you. But races, in my opinion, are won and lost in between the races. And my day job and my family obligations were keeping me from prepping the car to a level that was up to anyone's standard. And it made more sense to step away from racing since I couldn't do my best. I really don't like half-assing stuff.
Yeah, I was definitely going to ask you that. Like, what was the, we all have our, everything must come to an end, right? All good things come to an end, and you come to a realization and what that ends up looking like for you. And I was curious what that was that ended up taking you out.
That's what it was. We were breaking in a new car. This was the I Believe car, the one that we literally, honestly started for the first time 20 minutes before the green flag at King of the Hammers. We're at ADS tuning the shocks, trying to burp air out. And the very first time I drove that car was a green flag at King of the Hammers that year. In fact, we went off the first 2 jumps, and after the second jump, the steering wheel had come off. It was in my hand. And I looked at my co-driver, and he looked at me, and we just laughed, and we put the steering wheel back on, and, we were racing King of the Hammers. It's all part of the adventure.
I've had that conversation with multiple people recently that have all had that same experience where they've lost the wheel. The steering wheel's come off.
And it honestly, it just wasn't fair for the team either, that I didn't have time to prep it, and their energy in building it and being at the races weren't being rewarded. So it was strategic. It was hard. My son co-drove with me all of those years. I mean, how awesome is that to, on summer break, be able to race dirt ride in ULTRA4? My son's favorite race is Glen Helen to this day. So he was about to graduate college, and it was just kind of the end of an era. But here's where photography allowed me to stay connected with a sport that I loved. By that point, I had built up some friendships. I was doing some freelance work for Driving Line. I was, the headshot guy at this point. Anytime you needed a headshot for something, I was already taking my people pics. So I was able to really transition from being a driver, but still getting to be at every event by contracting with Driving Line. And they were gracious enough to let me write the stories and again, always be the secondary photographer. I was never going to step on the Kyle Wells and the Shannon Whitmore and, all the people who were their main photographers. That was their deal. But I loved it. And it helped me enjoy the sport differently because I wasn't under a car or stressed about my strategy or things like that. And my life was happy because, as we're all aware, you don't make money racing a race car.
No, not at all.
Now, all of a sudden, I'm making money going to races. Now my hobby was paying for itself, which was pretty cool. And again, being a people person, I learned really quick. If I couldn't make the race in person, call people on their drive home on Sunday. Sometimes it was good. And sometimes you got Tom Ways after he disagreed with how timing was done in Kentucky. But you know what? You always got an authentic story from people in the heat of the moment. And that's what I tried to do was bring that into the writing. And I think one of the biggest compliments I ever got was actually from Eric Miller, who said, when people ask what I do, I have them read your stories because I think they can relate to what you do. And that just meant so much. I wasn't writing from a technical aspect. I wasn't trying to prove to anyone how smart I was or anyone else was. Just wanted to share what I loved with anyone who would read it and look at it. And again, I'm so grateful to Kristen and the whole crew at Driving Line for giving me that opportunity. I'm honestly still torn. I get to do a lot of that for ULTRA4 now, which is great. But there was something kind of cool about being a freelance Dusty Gnome photographer who I could take off my corporate persona and just go be the Dusty Gnome in the desert for a week or go chase cars in Baja. And it was a tremendously relaxing and fulfilling escape for me to get to be that photographer character for a little while.
Yeah, just a relief.
Yeah, you bet.
The thing that really gets me is as I roll through photography, certainly headshots and certainly, looking at race coverage, it's to the point, and I've told you this, we've had this discussion in the past. I can tell you, not always, but for the most part, I can tell you who the photographer is by the photo. I don't even have to see their icon or their emoji or whatever to the side of their name. I can tell when it's Shannon Whitford. I can tell when it's Lana Scott. I can tell when it's Ryan Del Ponte. I can tell when it's you. And you guys have these you talked about, sitting out there at race mile 3 and just being mom and taking pictures of everyone. But those reps, you got your style and you figured out what worked and what didn't work. And you were honing your craft, and you honed your craft in a certain way. And it's signature. Like I said, it's so signature. It's crazy. And then those guys and ladies, they've done exactly the same thing. And I think that's, for me, I find that to be a pretty cool deal that they made a visual representation that is their signature. They don't even need to watermark it. Like it's, whose it is.
And again, a history major. So I tend to look at the past and analyze it. I was shocked how much photography was similar to music. A Strat sounds different than a Les Paul. So your Nikon guys are going to shoot a little bit different than your Canon guys. Certain people develop and hone certain sounds to where you don't even know who the song is. That's Slash. That's, the late Eddie Van Halen. Who that is based on their sound. And I early on started discovering the same thing. And again, that's why I bring up the Kyles of the world and the Wills of the world. They were signature sounds that really appealed to me visually, that I wanted to, at first you emulate, and then you do theme and variation and figure out what makes that your voice. And the other thing I love doing, quite frankly, is encouraging new photographers to get into the sport. And I'm uniquely positioned to be able to do that now with my role at, ULTRA4. We have to, crack down for hammers a little bit. I mean, that's one of the banes of our existence is how many iPhone photographers show up and try to pretend they're actual media. I mean, I get influencers are important and this and that, but we limit media at King of the Hammers intentionally. And again, that's where I got a ton of respect for Emily and her vetting process. But at the regional races, at nationals, I always like to encourage, whether you're shooting for a team or a local news outlet, or this is just something that appeals to you, fill out the media application, come to the meetings. I try to partner people up with, seasoned photographers so that, obviously we want people to be safe, but we also want them to do good work and tell great stories. And so I think having that background helps me just be really sensitive to wanting to be an inclusive place that brings in creatives, creates a place for them to really tell their story. And by extension, tell the story of our family, tell the story of the racers, tell the story of the support teams. Atterbury's crew that came down to frickin' San Felipe. I mean, they traveled as a unit. I thought it was a rock concert coming through. It was all just friends and family and multi-generational and matching T-shirts. They come to every event now. They're family just as much as the ULTRA4 crew. And to capture those stories and to see that and to participate even vicariously through that type of feeling is just something that helps people feel good and feel a part of it, even if they can't be there.
You're telling us this, and I've seen this firsthand. And I went through Rhonda Howell. You guys, this,
yes.
Her first event was to shoot, was actually hammers. Now you guys, Emily's process let me in. So obviously there's some flaws in the system.
It's a flawed system. We're still refining. Yes.
We're going to work the bugs out maybe next year, but Rhonda, ended up shooting KOH, and she is a very good photog, but she's like, oh, I'm still learning. I'm still figuring things out. And I see her work and I'm just like, I think you've got it. I mean, I think you're good. Her acceptance into that world and being paired up with different people to go out, all those photographers at the races, they kind of click together and like, they all do their homework together and said, okay, these are good these are good locations, this time of the race, this time of the day. And then we move and they all kind of team up. I found that to be not that they were nomadic, but they are kind of nomadic.
Yeah. It's really interesting. My new home on the lake bed's actually the media tent. And I know that's sad. I try to go down and see Let's Roll every chance I get. I try to go hang out where the ULTRA4 crew is. But, that media tent is really where I found a second family out on the lake bed. It's its own subculture. And interestingly enough, and Rhonda's a great example, I think she's a phenomenal photographer. I don't think she gives herself enough credit for the work that she does. And I try to encourage her or find opportunities every chance I can for her to shoot. But that kind of became my role on the lake bed, if you will. Even when I was shooting for Driving Line, I just have this drive to include people in what's going on. So I would look for new photographers. I would look for people who looked lost. I would always volunteer to Emily. Hey, if you need people driven around the lake bed, I've got a couple extra seats. I'll take them out. I didn't view anyone as competition. I viewed it as a chance to really be an ambassador for the sport. And if these press people and if these photographers had a great experience and had great content, that would be reflective in their story. And so that's where Shannon and I got to know each other pretty well. Talk about another, mentor. Shannon Welsh was just really someone influential on what I did and how involved I was. And I always like to volunteer and, work for her. That was most of my questions. She always joked about, hey, Shannon. Mine was usually, hey, Shannon, where can I help? Because you always need an extra pair of hands somewhere. And that was a very natural place for me in the media tent, was to kind of help newbies, if you will, find their setting, show them where to shoot, give them tips and tricks. Because I know firsthand how addictive it is. So yeah, I'm like the little crackhead candy pusher, getting people addicted to ULTRA4 out on the lake bed.
Well, I totally value the offers extended by ULTRA4, the whole organization, and including me in that media group and all the all the, oh man, just everything, access to that media tent for me during the Hammers this year was, well, it gave access to guys like you. Shannon Welch and I, we had numerous meetings in there between us, brainstorming and game planning. And, it was awesome. I think a lot of things happen in that tent that maybe people necessarily aren't aware of, but it benefits the overall experience, not just on the lake bed, but globally.
There's a lot of things that happen in that tent that people don't need to know about. So, again, let's let what happens in Vegas stay in Vegas.
Yeah. All right. We'll go there. So, okay. So we kind of jumped ahead and jumped back, and we're kind of in this kind of my standard feel, right? That's kind of how I am, a little bit of, hey, look, squirrel. But in January of 2019, Dave Cole calls you. And as we know what your role is, we've described your role. You're kind of describing your role now, what you did during KOH 20. But January of 2019, Dave Cole calls you. You're in California. You're in San Diego. I've set the stage. How'd it happen?
Well, that's what's so funny. I mean, I'll be honest. As a personal life goal, and still one of my personal life goals, want to continue to be more and more involved with Ultra4. It's something I truly care about. I'm passionate about. To be honest, I saw myself working with Shannon. What's a role I can play as we go? So, yeah, I'm in Cali on a completely unrelated day job trip. We're selling software to a group practice down there, and who doesn't want to go to, San Diego in early January? So I jumped all over that trip. And yeah, I got a call from Dave, and he goes, you probably heard the news already, which actually is kind of funny. As a communication guy, there's a lot of news I'm not in, and I'm okay with that. But I did not know that Shannon had left. And so he shared that news with me, and he said, I've talked to a couple people, and, would you be interested? I understand you have a day job. I'm not asking you to, throw all that away, but here we are, a month out from Hammers. You've got some experience and you work well with Emily and others. Would you like to talk about it? Well, Dave, I happen to be an hour south of you right now. You got beer? Said, sure. So 11:30 at night, I drove up to Temecula, sat down with Dave, and we talked a lot about his vision for Ultra4. That was very important to me. I wanted to know, where he was going. If I commit to something, I tend to commit to something all the way. My wife always laughs with me that it's all or nothing. There is no gray area. With me, I'm all in or I'm all out. And I was really excited about where he was going, the things he was talking about, how he wanted to grow Ultra4 beyond just him, and really make it something sustainable for Bailey and for future generations. And it was just an exciting vision. And Lindsay was doing a fantastic job with communication. Again, I've known Lindsay forever. She had to deal with me as a photographer, so I was on her bad boy list, but he really wanted to step up and drive some of the marketing and strategy aspects of it. And that was right in line with my day job. So I was just absolutely thrilled for the opportunity. So even though technically I'm part-time, there's no such thing as part-time. I have day job and I have night job, and they're both equal time. But this is certainly something I love. And then from there, you know what? When I needed to fill in with social, I filled in with social. When I needed to do trade shows, I did trade shows with Dave, got to really work with Jeremy quite closely, and, was pretty heartbroken when Jeremy left because we were finding a rhythm there too. But then the addition of Ryan Thomas to the team, just again, couldn't be more excited. But I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, Dave's vision of how do I make Ultra4 about more than me? How do I systematize success and still have that feel? I mean, every conversation, believe it or not, starts with drivers. I know there is a segment of drivers that probably don't believe that, but I can tell you firsthand with clear eyes, drivers are the center of what Ultra4 is, then sponsors and fans, and kind of working out from there. And that's what Dave's intentionally trying to do, is surround himself with people who can help the sport outlive him, because there's so much energy and passion and time and money invested in this lifestyle that it needs to be more than a 20-year story arc. It needs to be a 40, 50, 60, 70-year story arc. We really believe we're at the beginning of something, still at the beginning of something that's unique and great and dynamic. And, the infrastructure's in place to make sure it has legs. And that's something I couldn't pass up. I wanted to be a part of that.
No, I can see why you would want to be a part of it. I mean, I love being a part of it as well. And I think I really enjoy as you're telling your story, me recognizing the exact parallels that you went down and myself went down when it came to our stopping racing. We stopped racing for different reasons, but as it gets to it, you still wanted to stay involved and stay involved in the sport and around your friends and your peer group and where the fun is. And I mean, I'm in the exact same boat. You picked up your camera and that parlayed into where you're at today with your second job. And then for me, I parlayed into, well, this thing that everyone's listening to. So, and we're both sitting here just trying to further the sport, spread the word, share our knowledge, share the stories, share our people, and just in general, be good stewards for the sport.
Sure. Stewards, ambassadors, whatever, if you love it, you want to represent it well. And, we both love it.
Absolutely. So, okay, as we're kind of getting to close, the future, what does the future hold for Alan? I know you said you'd like to be tall and skinny. I can't help you there. You mentioned you'd like to, just have more choices by the time you turn 50. Elaborate on choices. I'm always curious what goes through people's minds. What does the choices mean?
These are actually related stories. When I was with the consulting firm in Phoenix, we did a group for young people called Young and Motivated, high school age, young college age, where we talked to them about investing, where we talked to them about life choices and things like that. And one of the questions we always ask, who wants to be a pro athlete? And of course, everyone's hands would go up. And statistically, 99% of people had to put their hands down. We'd use that as a learning experience to say, just because you're not a pro athlete doesn't mean you can't work in a field you love. There's sports therapy, there's medicine, there's this. And so it was a way to encourage people to, you're always going to work and make money, but it was a way to encourage people to find something they're passionate about and then work in that field so that they can still love it. Well, right around that same time, we got very involved in Dave Ramsey. A lot of you may know Dave Ramsey. If you subscribe to Dave Ramsey's theory of biblical money management, he's your worst enemy because he keeps you from buying all the fun toys. But if you've got an eye to the big picture, it's a wonderful way to, over time, get out of debt, be responsible with your money. And so when I say more choices, by the time I'm 50, I want to work where I work and do what I do because I choose to do that, because I'm debt free, because I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, because my kids are taken care of, my house is paid for. So that's what I mean by choices is, I love doing stuff because I want to do it. I'll probably work till the day I die. I like working. My wife gets a little mad at me, but I feel like I'm contributing and I find work that I enjoy doing. That's why I move at this pace. But I want to do more stuff because I want to and less things because I have to by age 50. But, that game plan started 15 years ago. We had $30,000 worth of credit card debt, lived paycheck, and just had to make choices about lifestyle. Everyone laughs at me for driving my, 2007 FJ Cruiser with 245,000 miles that seems to leave me stranded quite often. But that's car number 4 on the depth chart. We pay cash for all of our cars. My wife's got a nice, dependable Toyota Highlander that's relatively new. Both my kids have, dependable vehicles. So that's what I mean by more choices by 50. I'd love to do ULTRA4 full time or something, in this space. And I'm on my plan to where by the time I'm 50, I will have more choices. The kids will be out of college. Financially, I'll be 100% debt free, including the house. And, I've got a plan to stay that way. So I am trying to play the long game there, but I'm also enjoying every single quarter along the way because I also believe it's a mistake to wait till you retire to start enjoying things. You miss so much if you wait until the end to play the game. So that's what I mean by that. Probably a little ethereal, but if you want to talk finances or you want to look into a way to give yourself more choices, I would strongly recommend just researching a little bit about Dave Ramsey. Again, not everybody's cup of tea, but certainly something that helped my family and I, and something we passed on to our kids so that they don't have as much debt or things to dig out from under, which is literally just crippling when you run up a bunch of debt when you're young. We all do it, but there are better ways than going down that route.
So will we see an ULTRA4 post about, the fastest over 50? Is that, am I putting, ideas in your head?
I don't know, man. I'm a year and a half away from 50 and I can't see anything besides nationals right now. Nationals and KOH 2021, which again, I want to be abundantly clear because if there is one question I get 10 times a day through Instagram, Facebook, everything else, because if you got a smart alecky reply on social media, you got it from me because I'm handling those accounts right now. But, is King of the Hammers 2021 going to happen? And I can say emphatically with 100% confidence, King of the Hammers 2021 is going to happen. Same week, same time, same place. Dave and Ryan and the whole crew are working with the county, with BLM. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts and things that need to be done and COVID planning and this and that. But yeah, Nationals this coming weekend and then King of the Hammers 2021 is my entire world. And that's how I'm going to dodge your fastest over 50 question.
I love it. It's quite all right, man. Supporting Ryan Thomas. How fun is that?
Dude, I got to tell you, I'm thrilled not to be the new guy anymore. That's kind of cool. Now they all pick on Ryan instead of me. It's tough to be in a room and you've been there a year and a half and you're still the new guy. So I'm excited that Ryan's on board. With his background and culture in desert racing and the Baja lifestyle, he brings a lot of skill sets to the table that we don't have from the rock racing side. But he has completely fallen in love with the rock racing and culture and ULTRA4 and, how can we grow this? And, everyone's a big concern when I joined the company. I mean, Camo, God bless him, is, everybody's favorite, dad. He calls me on the phone and literally asks, so what are your intentions with ULTRA4? Well, going to get her pregnant and leave. No, that's not the response you want. But everyone kind of had that with Ryan, and to see him embrace the culture, embrace the driver-centric focus, embrace the how can we continue to improve the driver experience. I mean, make no mistake, tons of room for improvement. No one's walking around thinking we've got it dialed in. There's some things we do really good and things like the timing we talked about that we don't, but we try to make changes when we can to make those better. And Ryan is certainly a dynamic driving force. And he's far enough outside the circle, if you will, that he can challenge JT and semi-live. He can challenge me. He can challenge Dave, all in love. But we're all working for the same goal. And it's actually pretty cool to have a professional perspective with his background at Jackson and BFG and, Baja and all that type of stuff. He brings another flavor that once you add it to the ULTRA4 family, just makes us stronger.
Well, I think we can agree. I think we can all agree that, there's multiple ways to do the same task. And I like that he is come from still off-road, but outside our genre and has a different perspective and that perspective is welcome at the table inside the halls of ULTRA4.
Yeah, no, it's just cool. I mean, just like any and everyone can relate to this, success is good and bad. You have to have a plan to scale. You have to have the ability to everyone wear multiple hats, but also have a clear vision on where you want to go. And I think Ryan's role, and then Ryan specifically as a human being and as a professional talent, are just another step towards, growing ULTRA4 and making it sustainable. But at the end of the day, I think our core team is still 13 people, counting me, and I'm a part-timer. So it's a very small group of people. So if you were at the Moab event, it was the funniest thing. One of the reporters was asking, where's our president? I pointed at the guy shoveling dirt and rocks over the timing loop at the start-finish line. I said, that's him. So everybody does a bit of the, do it all guy. And Ryan has certainly jumped in and been no different. But he's smart enough to come up with a plan on how do I get out of that being my job at every race? How do we scale it for? There's someone who's actually in charge of the timing loop besides him. So it's been fun. And just like anything, when you got a new guy with a strong vision who, is a leader, that always brings some interesting dynamics when you've already got a strong leader. And then, the JTs and Richard Crosslands and myself of the world. But man, iron sharpens iron. And it's actually been pretty friggin' cool.
That is a good statement right there. Iron sharpens iron, because it is a bunch of type A alpha guys. Man, y'all get along so well. You guys really crank out some good stuff.
Well, I was going to say alpha, but JT was included in that as well. I'm pretty sure, he's a Biden supporter. So,
oh man, you just got knocked off the Christmas card list coming out of Fountain, Colorado. No Christmas card from you. Postmark Fountain, Colorado.
I got knocked off the even living list. I need to watch it. I know this isn't going to air for probably a week or two, but he may be outside my window right now because he has a sixth sense.
It will.
No, that's the other cool thing too. Not going to lie, got to get it in. Getting to know JT on a personal level, getting to know Richard Crossland, getting to know the whole ULTRA4 bureaucrat and travel over there. oh my God. I mean, seriously, I do deal with some junk on some days and put out fires, but look at all the things I get to do. I mean, I'm not bringing to brag, but I've genuinely gotten to know JT on a personal friendship level. I've gotten to go stay at Jim Marsden's house. I get to go watch racing in Wales and, drink blackberry vodka with the Polish team in a rental house in Wales. And what else is going to afford you that? What else is going to give you those opportunities to meet these fascinating people and just experience life literally all over the globe? So whether a racer or working for ULTRA4, I just really dig that type of stuff, and that ULTRA4 even gives you those opportunities.
Yeah, you are almost the ultimate ULTRA4 cheerleader. I do love it. That's awesome. Did we cover all the bases you want to cover? I know you said you talk a lot, and you did, but that's completely okay because you had so much good content in there.
Oh, you can edit it wherever. I appreciate being here. I've really liked the series because, again, I knew Casey Gilbert, but I didn't know Casey Gilbert. And it has just been really fascinating for me to learn about people I know and like and respect in the industry. So I do appreciate you having me on. I think you're doing a great job here, not just for, the sport, but for you and sharing. I'm a storyteller, and this is an ultimate storytelling platform. So I'm grateful and appreciative to be on the Talent Tank. And frankly, I did it all for the hat. So, I was really jealous that other people had Talent Tank hats. I'm kind of hat junkie. So that's my true motivation.
They are coveted, very coveted. Before we bounce off, I need to do not necessarily some housekeeping, but just a little announcement and a little congratulations that Eric Miller and Lee Miller, that we all know so well, Eric and Lee welcomed into the ULTRA4 family, a new racer. And I'm proud to say his name's Wyatt. His name is Wyatt, and they've got a new baby. I think he got here yesterday. And we've got nationals, come. So Eric and Lee with a new baby and racing right there. Congratulations, Millers. Well done. Glad to hear Lee is healthy and amazing about this little play buddy for Nixon. Alan, man, thank you for coming on the Talent Tank. I really appreciate, really value the job you're doing, really value you taking your time to go out and back my venture here. I really do value it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. All
right, guys. This weekend, Nationals, man, there'll be a live feed, right, Alan? ULTRA4 Racing.
You bet. ULTRA4Racing.com/live.
And you will hear all the Miles Hassicus you can get your ears full of. I can't wait to see him too. I just saw him a couple weeks ago.
Actually, I do need to do a public service announcement here. Playing Miles catchphrase bingo with beers is hazardous to your health. So, pace yourself and do some of the Miles bingo catchphrase stuff with water, because it's a long event and we really care about your health.
I need to see this bingo board. Maybe I need to be texting that out. Maybe I need to text Miles and see if he has it, or maybe I just need to create it if it doesn't really exist, because I can get most of them like, all right, back to you, Jim. Back to you guys.
All four Nitto tires holding there.
Yeah. Powered by Optima battery. As I'm doing sponsor shout outs on here for Miles. Oh man. Well, Alan, thank you again. Really value you coming on the show. And I hope everybody enjoyed the last, call it an hour and 50 some minutes or so, and 45 minutes. Well done. Well done. Well done. We'll see you guys at Nationals. All right. We're out.
Thank you for listening and taking a dive into the Talent Tank. Please like and subscribe on Instagram @The Talent Tank or our website, thetalenttank.com.